welcome to the Financial Flow. Please like and subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up on our latest videos. In 1949, a guy by the name of Frank McNamara started something called a Diners Club card. First real payment card company in the world. The Diners Club allowed you to eat at restaurants on credit and then pay off your bill at the end of each month. But it wasn't a true credit card. It was called a charge card, and it was the first of this kind to survive and thrive. 10,000 people signed up for the Diners Club card in its first year, and by 1959, the club had more than 1 million members. As soon as he introduced the Diners Club card, Frank McNamara discovered that charge cards and later credit cards were an insidiously brilliant way to tap into human nature's inherent greed. When you pay with a credit card, the pleasure of buying is replaced by the pain of paying, which gives the impression that something is free even though rationally you know it isn't. Getting people into debt and using them as your debt slaves is the most efficient way to make money. A lot of the most powerful families in history are bankers because they only need to hand someone money, and that's all there is to it. There is no manufacturing or shipping involved. All you have to do is sit back and let your desk work on your behalf. It's ideal if they take out a huge loan, like the mortgage for a house, half so that they're trapped in that loan for half or all of their life, or if they have an insanely high interest rate, so that even if they only have a tiny bit of debts, they would still be caught in the vicious cycle that would obviously trap poor people the easiest, and credit cards became the perfect vehicle for doing so. The problem is when people think it's just a piece of plastic, or it is so innocent and pretty. It's just one purchase that I can't afford right now. I will pay it off, etc. They don't realize that they have racked up so much credit card debt that they can barely afford to pay off the interest each month. And that is precisely what happened. Credit cards have evolved into the modern day loan sharks because the average American adult now carries 3 credit cards with an average balance of over $5,500. The first general purpose credit card, the Bank AmeriCard, was launched by Bank of America in 1958, based on the success of the Diners Club. As a result, Bank of America lost millions of dollars because it didn't have a magnetic strip or any other way to keep track of purchases. Back in the day, committing credit card fraud was ridiculously simple, but the companies that engaged in it gained a huge customer base despite the fact that they lost money. In 1965, Bank of America began licensing the concept of the credit card to other banks, and in the 1970s, a merger created Visa, and the credit card competition officially began. People loved it because they were spending money that wasn't theirs, and with other factors, household debt began to skyrocket. Even though the business model worked flawlessly, profits were a glaring omission, even though banks were making modest profits from the interest they charged at a time, when interest rates on credit cards were only charging 4 to 5% of what they are now. The banks were legally prohibited from raising rates higher, using this new brilliant tool that led people to believe that they could get things for nothing into a loan sharking tool was a pressing need by the late 1980s and early 1990s. For decades, most US states prohibited credit card companies from raising interest rates, but once South Dakota removed its cap on credit interest rates from state budgets, it got even better for credit card companies, who had been trapped in debt for decades and had been charging higher interest as a last-ditch effort to avoid going bankrupt. Later, the US Supreme Court ruled that banks could export their interest rates to other states. This was incredibly important because it meant that if a bank based in South Dakota had an interest rate of 25%, they could charge that rate anywhere in the United States, regardless of the interest rate laws in other states. For all intents and purposes, the interest rate cap in other states was rendered meaningless. Banks suddenly flocked to South Dakota, where they could charge much higher interest rates and therefore began offering credit cards to everyone, college students as well as young adults and the unemployed. In the early 2000s, Citibank was one of the most profitable businesses because of the Supreme Court's Smiley decision, which removed the last bit of regulation regarding late fees and interest, essentially giving banks a free rate to rake in the money, resulting in things like 36% annual interest rates, However, if you are one of these more risky individuals, you would have to pay an insanely high interest rate that could keep you trapped forever. In 2 years, repaying a $10,000 credit balance at a 36% interest rate would cost you over $14,000 in interest, or about $590 per month. Even people who never missed a payment suddenly found that their interest rates had almost tripled, but there was practically nothing they could do about it, and the credit card companies were just getting started. Why would anyone pay an outrageous fee for an ordinary credit card when they could instead use the Discover card, which charges no annual fees and gives you cash back on every charge? This means that instead of wasting money on a card, you're actually saving money. After gaining control of interest rates in the early 2000s, credit card use had more than doubled even among lower income households. The company's next goal was to acquire new customers, and the obvious choice for this target market was young, impressionable college students. The majority of them were looking for extra spending money and were unconcerned about the fine print, so this was a match made in heaven. As a result, credit card companies could slap them with late fees and penalties, which is a credit card company's worst nightmare, as a customer who pays off their debt every month because they got all the benefits without paying interest. These people are really after people who can't pay their debts, so the amount they owe keeps increasing. Credit card companies in the United States are beginning to resemble high-class loan sharks, as they hire teams of lawyers to write their contracts and then bury hundreds of loopholes in the fine print. It was because of these loopholes that they had the power to raise interest rates even if you missed a payment on another creditor's loan, choose public holidays or weekends for payment due dates, and even advertise going paperless to save the environment, when the reality is, they know most people aren't likely to read the fine print in an email. In search of a larger audience, rewards and cashback rewards for using credit cards are being offered by credit card companies to get you used to missing payments without feeling the pain of interest charges until it becomes a habit. And they even lower their minimum payment from 5% to 2% to make it easier for you to keep up with the payments. There are currently more than $8,000 in credit card debt in the average American family. Most of it is accruing penalties for late payments, but even when families file for bankruptcy, they receive offers from dozens of credit card companies for even more money they can spend. There's a lot of credit and you may not use it all, so the $700 annual fee is actually only $200 if you fly 4 times a year and earn points with like intravenous injections. If you fly more, the fee drops to $50 per trip. And if you fly more frequently, the fee drops even further to points with intravenous injections. In order to avoid being taken advantage of by credit card companies, the only 2 things you need to do are to pay off your balance each month and not use your card for anything you can't pay for out of your own pocket. If you only do those 2 things, however, you'll be safe from getting screwed over by credit card companies. For example, if you're going to drink alcohol, I believe that if you do so in moderation, it isn't a problem. However, there are people out there who are harmed by alcohol, and for them, I would agree that it makes sense to avoid it completely. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Have a good one.